Okay. We'll learn about Gemara. Today's daf of Samach Zayin Amud Aleph. So we learned that there are two kinds of assets in a marital relations. There's nichse maloig, that is the assets that she brings into the marriage, but essentially they're still hers, just that the husband has a dividend of it. So everything there belongs to her, essentially. And then we have nichse tzem barzel, where while they're married, definitely it belongs to the husband. There's a fixed price in the ksuda, therefore it's completely his. Because any increase or decrease in value, it's all his, the husband's thing. Then we have a rule that a woman who's a bas yisrael, she's married a kohen, she can eat truma. If the husband dies, she no longer can eat truma. If they had children, even like yesterday, if they had a grandchild, if they had children, then the woman can continue eating on account of the children. Now, if the woman owns servants and brings them into the estate, and the husband dies and the children, not only she can eat truma, but the servants as well. Why can the servants eat truma? Well, it depends. If it's nichsen maloig, they're her servants, then they can eat because of her. Since she has the capacity to eat, she can pass it on to her servants. If they are nichse tzem barzel, they eat not because of her, but because of him, the husband. The discussion we're going to have in the Gemara today is if the woman is pregnant. We don't know if it's a boy or a girl, but the woman is pregnant. And what happens then? If she's married to a Yisrael or she's married to a Kohen? If she is married to Yisrael, she was a Bas Kohen, and she's pregnant, she cannot go back to her family because it says we have no children. She has a baby in the womb. If she's a Bas Yisrael who's married to a Kohen, and she is pregnant, can she eat studying truma, even though there were no other children, just the one in the womb? Can she start eating truma or not? And we say, no, you have to wait until the child is born. But we can learn some now. So an interesting argument regarding if when does a child begin to inherit? Does the child inherit only when it's already born, or even while it's in the mother's womb, the child already is considered one of the heirs? Says the Gemara. And we're talking here now about nichse tzem barzel. That's what we're going to focus on, which means they belong to the father or to the estate. The father dies, it passes on to Yoshim, unless she insists, we had yesterday, she wants it back. So it belongs to the Yoshim. Is the uber, the fetus, considered a yedish or not while it's in the mother's womb? And this has ramifications regarding her eating truma or not. It says the Mishnah, that Samach Zayin Amud Aleph, Bas Yisrael, a Bas Yisrael who does not eat truma only because of her husband, a kohen, Shenisa, he's married to a kohen, and then he died. He left her now pregnant. Now we're talking about a case that there were other children. So you would think, well, if there are other children, then she should be able to eat truma, right? What does it matter that she's pregnant? I mean, we're talking about a case that Tzem Barzel belongs to the only reason why she can eat truma is because of the children. And one of the children is in the womb. So the problem is as follows. She cannot eat truma. Now, why can't she? Avoni cannot eat truma because the Mishnah holds that the uber is already one of the heirs. So he yarshins, but because he's not yet in the world, he cannot give up. He can only take, not give. It's only after you're born you can take and give. So therefore, this child is a Yerush. So he owns part of the avodim. When these avodim are eating in his chus, he owns part of the avodim, but he cannot give. He can take, so he owns part of it, but he cannot give them the right to eat until he is born. So that as long as she's pregnant, the avodim cannot eat. Now, why is it that while it's in the mother's womb, they cannot eat? We're going to see in the Gemara what the possible reason is. The two reasons. Then Gemara continues. Yeah. On account of the uber, he's the heir. And therefore, he owns part of the avodim, but he cannot give them the right to eat. So the uber passes them, but when he passes, if, for example, the woman was a bas kohen, the husband died, no children, so she has the right to go back home and eat truma again. But if she's pregnant, she can't. So the uber has the capacity to passel, to disqualify his mother or her mother from eating truma to go back to her family because she's pregnant. But the uber does not have the capacity to enable people to eat. So, for example, she's a bas yisrael married to a kohen, the husband died, no children, and she's pregnant. She cannot start eating truma yet. She has to wait until the child is actually born, regardless of the boy or girl. Give it Rabbi Yossi. That's what Rabbi Yossi says. The rabbi said back to Rabbi Yossi, because you testified to us al bas yisrael the kohen regarding a bas yisrael to a kohen, what happens when she's pregnant. So also, and the reason is because maybe, as we'll see, because maybe the child is an heir and therefore inherits, owns part of the body, but cannot give them the right to eat. So what's the relevance here that the mother is a Bas Yisrael and the mother be a Bas Kohen? Since the avodim belong to the husband and is eating on account of the children, and one of the child is a fetus, is an embryo, so therefore they cannot eat. We cannot eat because this child, disqualified, does not give them the capacity to eat for his portion. The maiden husband died. Let's say the wife's a Bas Kohen, so she would be able to eat in her own right. But the avodim belong to the husband, and there's an uber there. Because of the share of the uber. What's the difference? Now the Gemara asks you, what's Rabbi Yosef's logic? Why, if she's pregnant, the bottom cannot eat? Is it mishum somebody holds uber b'meye zora zoru? Is it because he holds that since the mother is a Bas Yisrael, as long as the baby, the embryo is inside the mother, the embryo has the status of a Yisrael. When does it become a kohen? Only once it emerges, but not while it's in the mother. That's the problem. Because the Bas Yisrael, the uber is Yisrael as well. Therefore, uber prevents the mother and also prevents the avodim from eating. Is that the problem? That who has the capacity to enable others to eat only once you're born, once it emerges, but whilst in the mother's womb, he does not have the ability to give others or make others eat. And that's why, since he owns part of the avodim, they cannot eat. What's the difference? Which reason it is? The outcome is the same. No, the outcome is very different. What if the mother's a Bas Kohen? Lubiv meir kohenis. What about the Bas Kohen? If it's the first reason because the uber takes on the identity of the mother, well, she's a Kohen, so what's the problem? The Avodim could eat. But if the reason is because the uber owns part of the Avodim but does not have the right to enable them to eat, then it makes no difference who the mother is. These Avodim are eating on account of the father. Because we're talking about Nichse Basel, the state that belongs to the father. Therefore, they cannot eat. Which one is it? Omar Rabba, let's look at the response. So first we have a machlekes. Rabba says, the reason Rabbi Yossi is because somebody holds uber, the mei zoru zoru, holds that since the mother is a Bas Yisrael, the uber takes on the identity of the mother, and that's why the body can't eat. Rabbi Yossi says, no, you lud meichel, only once you're born can the child enable others to eat, and you lud any meichel. Makes a question. Look at the response that Chachamim gave to Rabbi Yossi. In the Bryce, he goes in more detail. Rabbi Yossi says, Rabbi Yossi, since you testified on Bas Yisrael Kohen, you're talking about a Bas Yisrael Kohen that if she's pregnant, the Avodim cannot eat. Bas Kohen Kohen. What would you say the daughter of a Kohen would be? He said, Zushemati. I only heard about the mother of Bas Yisrael. Zulay Shemati, and I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that one. So it was more like this. If you learn like Rav, that the mother, that the child problem is that the uber takes on the identity of the mother, it makes sense. If the mother's a Bas Kohen, then maybe the avodim could eat, because even the uber is a Kohen. That's what Rabbi said. Yes, in that case you can eat. Eli, if you're going to say Yilud Meichel, Yilud Any Meichel, but if you're going to tell me that a Yilud only when it emerges can you give to eat, then who cares who the mother is? Bas Kohen, Bas Yisrael. If she's pregnant, then the avodim that belong to the children, including the uber, cannot eat. What do you mean? Rabbi Yossi says. Rabbi said there's no difference. He. It's the same thing. No difference who the mother is. Why did Rabbi Yossi say no? In this case, if the mother of Bas Kohen is permitted, doesn't that prove that Rabbi's right? The whole problem is identity. Kasha remains a question. And interesting, even though the mother of L'chayla asked Kasha and repudiated Rabbi Yosef's thing, the halach is like Rabbi Yosef, which whenever the Gemara says Kasha, it means, okay, it's a problem, we don't know the answer, but we're not going to change our mind. To Yufta means it's been repudiated. Kasha means, okay, we got to work on it, see how we can reconcile it. Rabbi Shmuel, said Rabbi Shmuel, he made a comment, these are the words of Rabbi Yossi. They hold, yesh loy bonim oichlim mishum bonim. That they hold, we ignore. Rabbi Shmuel says the rabbis argue they ignore the uber altogether. They argue that the uber is not an heir until it's born, not while it's in the mother's womb. So it has no bearing on the case. And that, therefore, if there were other siblings, then the avodim can eat, the wife can eat because other siblings. Ein loy bonim. If there were no children, then you continue eating because there is an heir out there. There must be brothers who are kohenim. Brothers. There must be somebody in the family. We can learn in Yesh Neichel that every Jew, apart from Geir, has some heir somewhere. You work your way vertically, horizontally, and try to work out who the closest relative is. But they're all kohenim, because they have to be in the father's side of the family. So therefore, the avodim can always eat, and the uber has no bearing, which obviously argues Rabbi Yossi, who believes the uber does have a bearing, because it's already considered an heir. While at the moment it starts forming, it's already an heir. Says the Gemara, the words that he uses, zu, this is what Rabbi Yossi sounds like, but I don't agree with him. I don't agree with him. In other words, I hold like the Rabbanon that an Uber has no rights. Let me ask a question. Shmuel, very interesting. We're learning about an Uber, the rights of an Uber financially, commercially, when, in the States now they're having this whole debate as well about the status of an Uber. The abortion, pro-abortion, anti-abortion. Shmuel said Rav Chana from the city of Baghdad, or Rav Chana Baktar, the full person who was an expert in Agadata. He said, "Puk, go out." This is what Shmuel said. Eisili be'asar. It's an expression Gemara sometimes when they want to talk about a novel halacha that everyone should be aware of. They would say the following expression: "Go out there, bring 10 people. The aim lechaban payus." I can say before them the following: "Hamezapel zakal uber." If I pick up, let's say $100, and I say, "Oh, I want this money to belong to that." Child, to that pregnant woman's child, while the child is still in the womb, kana, the child is kind. In other words, he's saying that an embryo has rights, a fetus has rights. So what do you mean, zu? You must say right. Elozu, this vidale. He's saying this is what Rabbi Yossi, and I agree with him. Says the Gemara, some Micah Mashals, what's he trying to tell us? He's trying to tell us that Rabbi Yossi, he's trying to tell us that don't think Rabbi Yossi is unanimous. The Rabban actually disagree with Rabbi Yossi, and they hold that an Uber has no rights. Says the Gemara, mi poli. Are you going to tell me that they're actually arguing? Well, Rabbi Zakkai said, Zu Eidis Hayid Rabbi Yossi. This is what Rabbi Yossi said in our Mishnah. He didn't just say in his own name. He said it in Bishmai Bavtalim. He said it in the names of Shmai Bavtalim. And in their names, V'hoiduloi, the Rebbes of Bisham Rasul, and V'hoiduloi, which are a number of generations before Rabbi Yossi. And V'hoiduloi sounds like that they all agree to him. In other words, there's no longer any argument. Everyone agrees that the Uber has rights. Amar Rabashi, no, Hoiduloi means they said, yeah, good point. But doesn't mean they changed their mind. Mik Tani V'kibli, if you think that the rabbis changed their mind and accepted, or the Rabbi Yossi would endorse Rabbi Yossi's opinion, they would have said V'kibli, they accepted his opinion. But Hoiduloi Tani means the mistabit time. It makes sense. So what we learned. Hiniach Bani, our rabbis learned Hiniach Bani. Let's say the Kohen was married to this woman and he had other children. And she wasn't pregnant. So then obviously she could continue in Truma. Her husband was a Kohen because of the account of the children. Then the servants, whether it's Avdei Maloi, which means her servants, since she has the right to eat, she can pass it on to her servants, or whether it's Avdei Tzem Basel, which are the husband's servants, can continue eating on account of the children. Yeah, but what happened? Let's say he left her pregnant and there were no other children. Well, everyone will agree that if there's no children and while she's pregnant, she cannot start eating. Neither of them can eat. Why? Because the Uber does not does not have the capacity to enable anyone to eat on account of the Uber's presence. What happens? There were children, and she was pregnant, which is the case of our Mishnah. This is how it works. Avdei Maloi, her avodim that belong to her, and the only reason why they can eat is because of her, but she herself cannot eat. Avdei Maloi, yeah. She left the children and left the muberes. So she can eat because the avodim can eat. Why can the avodim eat? Because the avodim do not belong to the father's side of the family. This Uber, who's going to yashin, who is a chelik of the father's side of the family, does not have any ownership in these avodim, so they can continue eating. So because of the other children. So she can eat, so they can eat as well. She eats because of her children. The Uber has no bearing because he's not yashining her. The Uber has no bearing, and the Uber has no bearing. So therefore, the avodim can eat. She can eat. All right. What about Avdei Tzem Barzel? But what about Avdei Tzem Barzel? These avodim that belong to the husband's side of the family. So the Uber may be, this is Rabbi Yossi's opinion, the Uber already has rights and has a right in avodim, then lo yochlu, they cannot eat. Why? Because of the portion of the Uber, because the Uber already has a share in all of these avodim. And we don't know which part of that, but whichever is going to end up with the Uber, and therefore they're not allowed to eat. The Eved shall Uber. Uber stops. We said before the Uber has the capacity to stop the mother if she's married to Yisrael, she's a Bas Kohen, she cannot go back to her family while she's pregnant, so it passes. But the Uber doesn't have the capacity to pass on eating. The Now we're going to have different opinions, two more opinions. We're going to have Rav Shmuel bar Rabbi Yosi, and we're going to have Rav Shimon Yochai. Rav Shmuel bar Rabbi Yosi, Mishum Avi, then the Gemara later on is going to explain their opinions. Rav Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yosi, said the name of his father, Rabbi Yosi. It depends. He says as follows: Habas ma'acheles. If there is a daughter, a sibling daughter, the Gemara will explain what's going on here. Then, even though she's pregnant, ma'acheles the avodim can eat. But haben, if the sibling is a ben, then ain't a meichel, because there's an uber there and they're all inheriting equally. Therefore, the avodim cannot eat. But if there's only a bas there, then they could eat. And the question will be why they can eat. We'll soon see. That's the Rabbi Shmuel bar Yosi. Rabbi Shimon Yochai says as follows: Zichorim yochelu. If, let's say, amongst the children, the siblings, there are males, then avodim can eat because of those children, and we're not worried about the uber. So if there were boys there, we don't care about the uber. Why? Why do we care about the uber? The Gemara doesn't explain. Not because the uber has no rights, but because the uber might be a girl, and if there are boys there, the girl will not inherit. It's a 50-50 chance. But also, even if it's a boy, some women miscarry, so therefore it'll be definitely less than 50% chance that it's a boy. It's more probability. The laws of probability. That's a girl that has no ownership in the avodim, and because it has no ownership in the avodim, therefore the avodim can eat. So Rav Shimon Yochai says, if the siblings were boys and we don't care, then the avodim could eat. Then the avodim could eat. Exactly the opposite of what Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yosi said. The kavas, but if the siblings were girls, then lo yechlum, then they cannot eat. We'll soon see why not. If the sisters were girls, he cannot eat. Why? Because maybe this embryo inside the mother's womb is a boy, which means he will inherit everything and they will inherit nothing, and he cannot allow them to eat. Girls don't get anything. Okay, which is exactly the opposite of Shmuel, who said that there's a sister, then they could eat. What's going on here? Before we get to that, he says what? What Rav Shimon Yochai said. He said that if there were siblings or girls, then you cannot eat because maybe the embryo is a boy. And what happens if the uber is a girl? If the uber girl, no better either, because if the uber is a girl and only girls there, then she will inherit like the rest, and she cannot allow anybody to eat. So what's the difference? What the uber is? The Gemara explains. Why did you say the reason why there were all girls and the uber prevents the avodah from eating because maybe it's a boy, and if the uber is a girl, even if it's a girl, possible because then now she's an heir like everybody else. Because the only sisters they all inherit, but there's only girls they all inherit, so she's an heir, and therefore she cannot pass on the right to eat truma. So you're right. Chada comes. Give me two reasons. Chada and the keva nami possible. First of all, the keva also disqualifies, and furthermore, in other words, the keva itself disqualifies. The reason we just said she's an heir, and even if you want to say it's a boy, then it makes it worse. And if it's a girl, if it's a boy, then the others don't inherit. Only the uber will inherit, and the uber cannot pass on the right to eat truma. Says the Gemara. Said, or if let's say that there were all siblings were boys, then they can eat. What about the uber? What about the uber? The uber is also an heir, and therefore an uber cannot pass on. Why can they eat? So he holds. The Gemara says, he says that the uber being a zachar is a miyut. 50-50 chance of the boy, and even if it's a boy, maybe she'll miscarry. So therefore, it's a miyut, and that's why it has no bearing. Not because the uber has no rights. It has rights, but it's the minority. That's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is no, maybe we are concerned about the boy. Maybe we are concerned about the uber. So how come if there were brothers there, we say no problem, not because we say that it's a me and probably it's a girl, but more. The avdina takanta, we're going to go out of our way. We want to help the avodim out. They need to eat. So we're going to make a takana. We're going to say that this particular uber is going to inherit from the state, but not the avodim. We're talking about the other assets besides the avodim. We're going to make a special rule and say, you know what, this uber is going to have assets, but the avodim are not part of them, and they'll get something in contra to that. And this way, the avodim belong, completely to the people, to the kids who are alive, and they can eat from them. Where do you find such a precedent? The Shmuel, we learn Kedushin, and Amar Nach, we learn Kedushin, Amar Nach, and Shmuel. You say Mishmol Avnei Zavim. Let's say a bunch of orphans are coming to inherit their father's estate and come divided, and they're all young, and they cannot do any division themselves. What happens is Bezin Mamidla, but Rufus Bezin sets up an executor of the state, and this executor works on behalf of each of the children and gives each one the best possible share. But however, the first opinion says that if the children, Shmuel says that if the children grow up, now they have the mind of their own, they can say, look, we want to reevaluate everything, reassess everything, let's recalibrate. They can protest and start again. However, Nachman says the day he says that's what Shmuel says. I disagree. I hold once they grow up, it's too late. Why? Because he came up. What's the point of going through the exercise, having executives in the state and dividing the state when tomorrow it could all be unraveled, it all could be undone? So therefore, what does he say here? That we make a special takana, that we make a kundam nachem, a special takana to make it work. So the same thing over here. We make a special takana. The Uber can have no share in the avodim, and therefore the avodim can be true. Says Gemara Lema, so key things from here. That Nachman Tanayir, if Shimon Yochai is the one that says that, others disagree. So because like Rabbi Yossi says, if there's a Uber cannot eat, that means we don't make that takana. So this argument of Rabbi Nachman and Shmuel is actually the argument of Rabbi Yossi of Shimon Yochai. Like, no. Everyone perhaps agrees with Nachman. Everyone agrees with Nachman. And that if we made a takana, it is valid. The thing is, they're arguing whether we actually made a takana here. Over here, they're actually arguing about whether chayshul or not. Here, they never made a takana. Never made a takana. You know what? We're going to make the Uber not be involved in our body. We never made such a takana, so therefore there's no argument there. But where they made a takana, maybe the Nachman is right. In fact, Allah is like a Nachman. Once the Bez makes a takana, you can't then unravel it afterwards. Why does Reb Shimon say that even there's an Uber, you can continue reading, we dismiss the Uber, and the Uber has rights, like we said on top of the page, because it's less than 50-50 chance that it's a male or surviving male. Says Gemara, let's understand Rabbi Yossi. He told us, he made a distinction with a boy or girl. He says as follows: Rabbi Yossi, his father, Habas, that if it's a girl, Michael, if the sibling, the surviving sibling is a girl, then we dismiss the Uber, we don't care. Michael and Avon can eat. But Ben, if the surviving one is a Ben, then Eina Michael cannot eat. So let's understand. Maishna Ben, why if the surviving, if there's a sibling, a brother, then the Avani cannot eat? Because the Uber might be a boy. And if the Uber might be a boy and then inherits, he cannot pass on the right to Truman. We understand that. And he doesn't think it's about muted business and all that. And if it's a girl, also shouldn't eat, because maybe the Uber is a boy, and therefore the boy will inherit, and he cannot pass on to the Avani. Because the share of the Uber. Abaye said, we have a very interesting rule. And the rule is that even though that the bonim are the ones who inherit, and not the bonus, but if there are very few assets left, we say that we're going to overturn that law and give it all to the girls and let the boys go out and get a job, or let the boys go out and make a collect for them, because it's much more common for boys to do that than for girls. So we make a special takana with as few assets, even though the males inherit, not the girls, but the few assets, we'll give it all to the women. So hacha ben achasim u'ating askinim. Okay, going. We're talking about a case, and not that there's only a daughter. We're talking about a case where the boys and girls, there were siblings, boys and girls, but there were very few assets. So then, according to this, as long as there's a girl there, we don't care about the Uber. Why? Because if what's inside the womb is a boy, who cares? We took it away, we stripped the boys from all the assets and gave it to the girls, because in the chasim wanted. Like the boys who are there are not getting anything. Why think the Uber will get something? So we strip it away. Uber gets nothing. And and if it's a daughter, maybe there's a girl there in the womb, and therefore the girl is entitled to the state that she cannot pass on. No, she's not. Since we made a special takana for the girls who are alive, that they should be able to survive on the small assets, we don't make a takana for a baby inside the mother's womb. Amai, but they can't to the bottom. Why are the girls eating? Because the mother made special takana in order that they should be able to survive. As long as this Uber is inside the mother's womb, so when it says, when Rabbi said if there's a girl, he meant a girl, even though amongst the boys. Girl and boys, then the thing is that the avodim can eat, because we ignore the Uber. We talk about a case where the chasim watim, we strip the state from the boys. So you established that we're talking about with a few assets, look later on, it says, Shema Yimotzi, he gives a progress, he says that he said the reason is Shema Yimotzi Uber and maybe the Uber will be a Zacher, and the Ein Lebonot b'Makar ben Klum, and the girls have nothing when there's a boy there. But if we're talking about when there's Nechasim Moatim, the bonus Nino Chasim Moatim belong to the girls. What do you mean the girls have nothing in presence of the boys? On the contrary, so you must say you're right. Say for Osam Nechasim Merubin and Nechasim Moatim the bonus Nino. Sorry, say for Nechasim Merubin. They're not talking about the same case. The first part is talking about with a few assets, then he goes to the girls. Later on, it's talking about with many assets, and then he goes to the boys. And therefore, the Uber does prevent it because maybe the boy is an heir and he cannot pass out. Says the Gemara, you're telling me, you tell me it's only a few assets, it all goes to the girls. You're saying that even though he goes to the girls, but let's say the boys didn't listen. Okay, they were told by the Bezin, you have to take all these little assets they have there and give them over to the girls. Let's say instead of giving the girls, they went ahead and sold them. You're saying they went, they knew they were being called to court, so the day before the court case, they went ahead and they made a fire sale and sold everything they had. Till the Chachamim intervened, it belongs to the boys because they inherited it. So what they did the wrong thing, but what they did is effective. So therefore, technically, it's really still the boys. So if it's still the boys, how come the avodim can eat? Just because we give the assets to the girls doesn't make it theirs. Well, the boys sell it, it's a sale. The girls cannot undo that sale. Well, my bastik tony, we say over here that a bas, we change our mind. Forget about what we said. Bas means that there's siblings and a girl and a boy, and there's few assets and goes to the girls. No, it's a bas. The tony aim. Now what? It's talking about the mother. If the avodim belong to the mother, in other words, the avdim maloik, then they can eat because the mother has the right to eat and passes it on, and the uber has no bearing on that. He says the Gemara, so exactly what Rabbi Yosi said in the Mishnah. You're right. Kula Rabbi Shmuel, but Rabbi Yosi Tanula. When Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yosi is the one who's saying he's following his father's footsteps and is explaining what his father is saying. It's all one opinion, not an argument. Mishnah, Uber. So we talk about Uber again. And Hayavam, if a woman who's let's say a Bas Kohen and she is pregnant, or she's a Bas Kohen or a Bas Yisrael, she's waiting for her husband, her brother-in-law to marry, but they haven't got married. Edison, all they did was they got engaged. Hachedish, or the husband was definitely done, which we learned before that the marriage is only midrabanan. And a 9-year-old, and it seems right now that a 9-year-old continuation of all these examples, poislin, all of them, they passel. That means that if the mother's a Bas Kohen and finds herself in any of these situations, she cannot go back home after her husband dies and eat truma. Let's say she's waiting for her brother-in-law. There's already enough ties to a Yisrael that she cannot go back home, or she's engaged to a Yisrael, she cannot go back home, or even a Chedesh, it's a weak marriage, but cannot go back home and cannot continue eating truma. And a 9-year-old as well, we'll soon see what's special about a 9-year-old, that if the Yisrael cannot eat. On the other hand, if she's a Bas Yisrael and this person was a Kohen, a Yava, brother-in-law waiting for Kohen, there's not enable you to eat. What about Safik Ben Teshani Mechad? It's a Safik whether the kid is 9-year-old or not, maybe he's underage. Or Safik Hevi Bayside is Safik Hevi, we're not sure if the kid is Bar Mitzvah or not, Safik reached puberty. Or Nuffle, Nuffle, so all of these also, they passel. So this situation, the person by the mission, in these cases as well, they passel her if she's a Bas Kohen, she cannot go back to her family because maybe they ruined her. But if she's a Bas Yisrael, about to marry Kohen, in these cases, we're not sure if the husband is reached by mitzvah and so on. The Kohen, she cannot eat yet. Now, next case, what happens if Reuben and Shimon? Reuben was married to Shimon's daughter. And Reuben was married to 2 women, to Shimon's daughter and somebody else. And we learned before that if Reuben dies childless, since Shimon cannot marry his daughter, which is now his sister-in-law, cannot marry his daughter. So not only there's no Yibam there, but also the Tzara is also exempt. The other wife of Reuben is exempt. So what happens if Naval buys Olav al-Basach? What happens if the house collapsed on top of Reuben and on top of his wife, the one that was a daughter of Shimon? Now, we don't know who died first. And there's a big difference as to know who died first. Because if Reuben died first, then kicked in the laws of Yibum, and since Shimon cannot marry his daughter, the Tzara is also exempt. But if his daughter died first, then there's no Yibum whatsoever. and for her, and then Reuben died. So that remaining wife was the only wife of Reuben, and she now has to marry Shimon. So it's a big difference. What do we do? So it's a rasa. That remaining woman, she cannot marry Shimon because maybe that she's parted from marrying Shimon because maybe his daughter died, survived Reuben, he died afterwards, and then there's an Isser of a sister-in-law, so Shimon cannot marry her. And on the other hand, she can't just walk out free because maybe it's the other way around. So then it gets chalitz. So now the Gemara explains. So Uber, what does it mean in the Mishnah when it says that Uber ruins it, but does not enable? It's not an enabler. It's a disabler, but not an enabler. So the Mishnah explains: Bas Kohen Yisrael, if she's a Bas Kohen married to Yisrael, and then he died, and now she's pregnant, so the child, the Uber, is a disabler because it's a Yisrael, and therefore she cannot go back home. He disqualifies her from going back home. Why? Because the pasuk says, "Kinurea." She goes back home. If the husband dies, she goes back like her youth. She has to be like her youth, but she's pregnant now. So therefore, she cannot go back home. She cannot eat truma. It's the other way around. If she's a bas Yisrael married to a kohen, loy meichila. If she's bas Yisrael married to a kohen, the fact that she's pregnant she's not an enabler. It's not a let her to eat. Why? Because Yilud Meichel, only the child born can eat. She'ein Yilud, ein a Meichel. Not born, you cannot eat. This follows the view of Rabbi Yosef. That's why you pass Rabbi Yosef, even though we had a question on him yet before, but we remain with that. Rather than saying the other reason because the embryos inside the mother has the identity of a Yisrael, we don't say that. Hayavam, it says a Yavam goes again. What do you mean? It's a disable, disable and enabler. So bas kohen Yisrael, if it's a bas kohen, and now she's waiting for brother Yisrael, she can't go back home because she has ties to Yisrael. Pasula, because she can go back home, at no ties, no strings, and prat because she's still tied to her brother. Bas Yisrael, if she's a bas Yisrael to a kohen, loy meichel is a bas Yisrael to a kohen. Loy Meichela, you cannot feed her because why not? If she's a Bas Yisrael for a Kohen, so she's waiting, she's about to marry her brother who's a Kohen. Why can't she study Truma? Because Kinyan Kasper there has to be a cemented relationship. And also, this is not because right now all it is the ties on account of the brother who died. Once she marries him, then it's no longer Yevama, now it's just his wife. So of course, you can eat Truma. But at this stage, the connection to Shimon is really Reuben, and it's not Shimon's connection yet. It's just representing Reuben, so therefore she cannot eat. Va'edison is just engaged. Same thing. Ibas Kohen Yisrael, if she's engaged to Yisrael, Apostle cannot eat anymore. Why? Because they're engaged. You're not allowed to eat. And and the truth of the matter is, she should be able to eat truma. It's only with Rabbanan, according to most opinions, she cannot eat. And we have either because of Simpan, maybe he'll find some flaws in her that unravel the whole marriage and she's eating truma for no reason, or because they're only engaged, she's still at home, and the family are Israeli, she might bring it back to the family. The Bas Yisrael a Kohen, and if she's a Bas Yisrael who got engaged to a Kohen, sorry, I just said all the way around. If she's a Bas Kohen to Yisrael, obviously she can no longer eat truma because now she's engaged to Yisrael. If she's a Bas Yisrael engaged to a Kohen, she should be able to eat. But why can't she eat? Because of Ula's reason, and Ula's reason is because what do you call it? She's home and she might pass on the truma to the rest of her family, al Yisraelim. So the Rabbanah said she should not eat truma. Okay, we'll stop over here.